Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Monday, July 13th, 2026, and you're listening to Alex's News. In Riverside, we're looking at a pleasant day with a high of 83 degrees and a low of 70.1. On today's show, we examine the deteriorating relationship between the United States and Iran, specifically looking at why both nations appear to be moving toward open conflict. We also shift our focus to the medical sector, investigating the underlying causes behind the current national blood emergency that is impacting hospitals across the country. In addition to these reports, we will cover several other significant stories making headlines around the globe. There is a lot to get through on this edition of Alex's News, so please stay tuned for all that and more. Good morning, everyone. We're following the U.S.-Iran conflict, which has spiraled into a dangerous cycle of airstrikes, regional retaliation, and a global energy crisis. Ethan, we last covered this on Sunday. What's changed since then?
Quite a lot, Grace. As we reported yesterday, the flashpoint has been the Strait of Hormuz, and things have only gotten worse. According to PBS NewsHour, citing the Associated Press, the U.S. launched several waves of strikes on Sunday, July 12th. That was in response to an Iranian attack on a Cyprus-flagged container ship. The vessel took serious engine room damage, and one Indian crew member is still missing.
Were the rest of the crew rescued?
Yes, thankfully. 23 crew members were pulled to safety by Omani authorities, according to PBS NewsHour. But that one Indian national remains unaccounted for. It's a reminder that civilian mariners are getting caught in the middle of this. And that's exactly what the U.S. says it's trying to stop.
So what did the American response actually look like?
CNN reports President Donald Trump directed these strikes to hold Iranian forces accountable and degrade Tehran's ability to target civilian ships. U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, described a really sophisticated assault. They used naval vessels, fighter planes, and for the first time, one-way attack sea and aerial drones. The targets were coastal radar sites, air defense systems, missile and drone capabilities, and small boats.
You said for the first time. Why does that detail matter?
It signals an evolution in how the U.S. is fighting this. These one-way attack drones let American forces hit targets without risking pilots or crews directly. It suggests the military is settling in for a longer, more sustained campaign. And it wasn't just that daytime operation. In a separate overnight assault, the U.S. struck roughly 140 military sites, including communication equipment and ammunition dumps.
What's the picture inside Iran right now?
The impact has been widespread. CNN and PBS NewsHour report explosions in cities like Bandar Abbas, Hajiabad, Jask, and Qashm Island. There are confirmed casualties, too. A security guard was killed at a water pumping station in Mashhar County, and a telecommunications technician was killed on Furur Island. These are the human costs that often get lost in the talk about targets and capabilities.
And Iran hasn't just absorbed these strikes. How have they hit back?
No, they've retaliated across the region. According to CNN and PBS NewsHour, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, launched missiles and drones at bases in 5 countries: Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and Oman. So this is no longer contained to the 2 main players. Iran is striking at U.S. installations wherever it can reach them across the Gulf.
Let's take those one at a time. What happened in Bahrain?
Bahrain may be the most serious. The IRGC claimed it struck a hangar for P-8 Poseidon aircraft and a drone command center at the Sheikh Issa Air Base. And according to CBS News, as of Monday, July 13th, that's today, fires were still raging at U.S. military facilities in Jufair. So this isn't a one-off. The damage there appears to be ongoing.
What about Kuwait?
Kuwait's Ministry of Defense reported damage to 3 northern land border posts. They also said an offshore drilling rig belonging to the Kuwait Oil Company was hit, causing 1 injury. That's significant because it ties the military conflict directly to energy infrastructure, which we'll come back to. When oil facilities become targets, the economic ripples spread fast.
And Qatar and Jordan.
In Qatar, 3 people, including a child, or wounded by shrapnel from intercepted drone fire. So even when defenses work, civilians are still getting hurt. In Jordan, state news reported that 3 missiles struck the country, causing minor damage. It's a wide net Iran is casting, and each of these nations now has to weigh how it responds.
You mentioned Oman was hit too. That's notable, isn't it, given their role as mediator?
It really is, Grace. Drones struck sites along the waterway, and Al Jazeera reports Iran claimed to have destroyed long-range airborne FPS radar and ship detection radar. What's striking is Oman's reaction. They summoned the Iranian ambassador and called the attacks, quote, irresponsible, end quote. Oman has been a key back-channel for talks, so hitting them risks damaging one of the few diplomatic lifelines still open.
Let's turn to the strait itself. Who actually controls it right now?
That's the central fight. Iran has asserted sole control over the Strait of Hormuz. They're claiming the right to charge vessels for transit, and they're trying to divert traffic out of Omani waters into Iranian-controlled lanes. President Trump and the U.S. military insist the strait remains open, pointing to more than 140 ships transiting in the past week. Iran says it's clamped down.
So who's right? Is anything moving through there?
In practical terms, it barely matters who's technically correct, because shipping has effectively ground to a halt. UN News reports roughly 6,000 seafarers are now stranded. And the UN International Maritime Organization, the IMO, has advised all vessels to avoid the strait entirely until safety can be restored. So even if it's legally open, the world's shippers are treating it as closed.
Now, all of this is unraveling a peace deal. Remind us what was signed and when.
Right. This all traces back to a memorandum of understanding signed on June 17th, so about 4 weeks ago. It established a 60-day interim deal meant to buy time to reach a permanent end to the war. That agreement was supposed to hold until mid-August. But UN News now reports the fragile ceasefire has ended. So we're watching that framework collapse well before its expiration.
What are both sides saying about the deal now?
The messaging is contradictory, which tells you how chaotic this is. On Iran's side, Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Khalibaf declared the, quote, era of one-sided deals is over, end quote. Iran's foreign ministry alleged the U.S. violated nearly all parts of the agreement within 25 days. And on the U.S. side, President Trump suggested last week that the interim deal was, quote, over, end quote.
If both sides say it's over, is there any diplomacy left at all?
Surprisingly, yes, and that's the thread of hope here. Despite the violence, CBS News and Al Jazeera report that indirect, quote, active conversations, end quote, are continuing through Qatar. On top of that, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi recently traveled to Oman to pursue negotiations through mediators. So even as the missiles fly, back channels are still open. That's often how these crises eventually get resolved.
Let's talk about the economic fallout. What's happening with oil and gas?
The markets are rattled, Grace. CNN notes Brent crude rose nearly 4% to $78.99 a barrel on Sunday. And here at home, U.S. gas prices have climbed 30% since the war began back in February. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned that a return to full-scale hostilities would have, quote, catastrophic consequences, end quote, for the global economy and for the people of the region.
And there's a leadership change in Iran driving some of this, right?
There is, and it adds a deeply personal dimension. The new supreme leader is Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei. He's stayed largely out of sight since the war began, but he recently vowed to avenge the killing of his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. His father was killed during the war's opening strikes on February 28th, so the man now leading Iran has a personal motive for revenge woven into every decision he makes.
That's a sobering place to leave it. Ethan, before you go, what should listeners watch for next?
I'd watch 2 things, Grace. First, whether those Qatar and Oman back channels can survive, especially after Iran struck Omani sites. And second, the strait itself. With 6,000 seafarers stranded and the IMO warning ships away, Every day it stays shut deepens the energy crisis. If diplomacy fails and the strikes keep escalating, the economic pain we're feeling at the pump is only going to grow.
Really important context. Ethan, thank you for breaking it all down for us this morning.
Anytime, Grace. We'll keep tracking it and bring you updates as they come.
Welcome back. Our next story hits close to home for anyone who's ever needed medical care. The American Red Cross just declared a national blood emergency. Here to explain is our reporter, Chloe. Chloe, good morning. What exactly is happening?
Good morning, Grace. So today, July 13th, the American Red Cross announced that its blood reserves have fallen to a critical level. According to reporting from NPR, KCRA3, and PR Newswire, the organization's blood supply dropped by nearly 25% during the month of June alone. That's a steep, sudden decline. And it's not just about supply, it's also about demand, which we'll get into.
A 25% drop in 1 month is dramatic. Is demand really climbing at the same time?
It is, and that's what makes this so serious. Red Cross distributions to hospitals are currently running nearly 3,500 units higher per week than expected. So imagine that squeeze. Supply is falling while hospitals are asking for more. When those two lines move in opposite directions, the system starts running on empty very quickly.
So why is this all happening right now, in the middle of summer?
A big part of it is timing. The Red Cross calls this the summer trauma season, the stretch between Memorial Day and Labor Day. That's when the need for blood to treat traumatic injuries typically spikes. Think car accidents and outdoor incidents. According to PR Newswire and KCRA3, a steep decline in donations began at the end of May, right as that demand was ramping up.
What's driving people to stop donating this time of year?
It's a mix of seasonal and personal factors. One of the biggest is the loss of school-based blood drives when students are out for summer break. Those drives normally bring in a steady stream of donations. On top of that, there's a rise in temporary illnesses. Plus, everyone's juggling busy summer schedules with vacations and travel. Add it all up, and donations just fall off a cliff.
Let's talk about the human stakes. How does a shortage like this actually affect patients?
This is where it gets sobering. Dr. Courtney Lawrence, the Division Chief Medical Officer for the Red Cross, warned that without an immediate reversal, patient care will be put at serious risk. She said emergency rooms and maternity wards are effectively, quote, paralyzed, end quote, without available blood. And she cautioned that patients with life-threatening conditions may not receive the treatments they need. That's not a distant hypothetical, that's the reality when shelves run bare.
Are certain blood types more urgently needed than others right now?
Yes. While all blood types are needed, the Red Cross says the shortage is especially serious for a few specific ones. Those are O-positive and B-negative blood, along with A-B plasma. So if you happen to have any of those types, your donation is particularly valuable at this moment. But honestly, every type helps, because hospitals need a full range to match different patients.
And who's most at risk when the supply runs low?
The people who depend on blood most directly. That includes trauma patients coming into emergency rooms, mothers in childbirth, and individuals battling cancer or sickle cell disease. For many of them, a transfusion isn't optional, it's the difference between recovery and crisis. And here's a statistic that really puts it in perspective. Someone in the United States requires a blood transfusion every 2 seconds.
Every 2 seconds. That's a staggering pace. Do most people understand how fragile the supply really is?
Not really, and that's part of the problem. A recent Red Cross survey revealed a big gap between what the public believes and how blood banking actually works. The survey found that fewer than 1 in 5 respondents realized that blood has a limited shelf life. It can't just be stockpiled indefinitely. That means it has to be continually replenished through volunteers, week after week.
So there's no giant reserve sitting in a warehouse, waiting for a rainy day?
Exactly, and that surprises a lot of people. Blood is a perishable resource, so today's donation is meeting today's need. The same survey also found that only about half of respondents believed it was likely that they or a loved one would ever need a transfusion. But given that every 2 seconds figure, the odds are much higher than most folks assume. That disconnect is exactly what the Red Cross is trying to close.
Let's get practical. I understand there's an incentive for people who donate right now.
There is, and it's a nice one. To help combat the shortage, the Red Cross is offering donors who give between July 13th and July 31st at participating locations a Fandango movie ticket. That covers the price and fees up to $15, and it comes to you via email. So essentially, if you roll up your sleeve over the next couple of weeks, you're helping save lives and getting a night at the movies out of it.
That's a great reason to act this week. So how does someone actually schedule a donation?
There are several easy ways. You can use the Blood Donor app or head to redcrossblood.org to book an appointment. You can also call 1-800-RED-CROSS. That's 1-800-733-2767. And if you've got an Alexa Echo device at home, there's even a blood donor skill you can use to set things up by voice.
Is there a way to speed things up once you get there?
Yes, and I'd really recommend it. The Red Cross has a tool called Rapid Pass, which you can use through the app or website. It lets you complete your health history questionnaire before you arrive, so you're not filling out paperwork on the spot. That trims down your time at the donation center and gets more people through the door. When supplies are this tight, efficiency really matters.
What should people bring with them, and who's actually eligible to donate?
Good questions. For identification, you'll need a driver's license or a blood donor card. If you don't have either of those, you can bring 2 other forms of ID instead. As for health, donors need to be in generally good health and weigh at least 110 pounds. Those are the basic thresholds to keep both the donor and the recipient safe.
And what about younger donors? Can teenagers give blood?
In many cases, yes. Most states require donors to be 17, but 16-year-olds may donate with parental consent where it's legal. There's one extra note for the younger group. Donors who are 18 and younger must also meet specific height and weight requirements. So if you've got a teen who wants to help, it's worth checking those details ahead of time before heading to a drive.
If you had one message for our viewers this morning, what would it be?
I'd say, don't wait for someone else to fill the gap. This emergency exists because donations dropped off sharply while hospital demand climbed. The supply fell nearly 25% in June, and hospitals are pulling nearly 3,500 extra units a week. Every single donation right now goes toward real patients, trauma victims, new mothers, cancer and sickle cell patients. And with that movie ticket offer running through July 31st, there's really no better time.
That's a powerful reminder that this is something we can each do something about. Chloe, thank you so much for breaking this down for us.
My pleasure, Grace. And again, folks, you can start at redcrossblood.org or call 1-800-RED-CROSS anytime.
That's 1-800-733-2767. The American Red Cross National Blood Emergency declared today, with especially urgent needs for O-positive, B-negative, and AB plasma. We'll be right back after the break. Here are some other headlines. Tragedy has struck the Senate as we mourn the passing of Senator Lindsey Graham at age 71. It seems his heart simply could not take the pressure, as the medical examiner preliminarily determined a tear in his aorta resulting from heart disease ended his tenure. President Trump shared that he and Graham spoke Saturday evening as the senator returned from Ukraine, with tentative plans to meet Sunday. In a gesture of national grief, the president has ordered flags to fly at half-staff. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky shared that he met Graham in Kyiv as recently as Friday, noting the senator had branched out 10 times to visit Ukraine during the invasion. Now, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster must plant a new seed for succession, appointing someone for the remaining months of the term before another primary is held. This loss leaves the Republican Party in a bit of a pinch. With Senator Mitch McConnell also sidelined, the GOP majority has shrunk to 51 to 47. McConnell, age 84, finally broke his silence Sunday, revealing a fall on June 14 left him briefly unconscious and battling mild pneumonia. While he avoided a concussion or stroke, doctors say his post-polio condition made the tumble a tough climb. He is now at a rehabilitation center, trying to get back on his feet. He plans to finish his term before retiring in January, with Republican Andy Barr and Democrat Charles Booker nominated to take his place. As Congress returns to Washington this Monday, they are facing a steep hill to climb with a lengthy to-do list. The Senate convenes at 3 p.m. today to tackle the National Defense Authorization Act, though it remains to be seen if they have the votes to push it through. It will be a busy week of testimony as Federal Reserve Chairman Kevin Warsh and acting CFPB Director Russell Vought take the hot seat before various committees. Additionally, the House will take the show on the road to New York City this Friday for a field hearing on the Clarity Act. Turning to international news, Ukraine is shaking things up with a government reshuffle to find some fresh momentum. Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko stepped down Sunday, marking the fourth major reorganization since the invasion began. President Zelensky has not left her out in the cold, however, offering her a new, important role managing relations with a key international partner. Sviridenko, who rose to power at age 39, was instrumental in securing a mineral agreement with the United States. Finally, Pakistan is rooting for a greener future. Minister Musaddiq Masood Malik has announced a weekly tree plantation initiative to leaf through the problems of emissions and heat waves. The government is ramping up its defenses with a 300-day national plan and updated contributions for 2025 to build a resilient economy. They are also calling for equitable climate finance at the United Nations Assembly in Nairobi, ensuring that vulnerable countries aren't left to weather the storm alone. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Opus 4.8, Gemini Pro 3.1, Gemini Flash 3, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.